Sorry, Gareth.
I wonder if I could just jump in there, because I'm in the dangerous position as a non-litigator, sort of commenting on the litigious stage of this conversation. But it seems to me that there's therefore a link between what Ian was just talking about and what Matthew was talking about in terms of the explainability challenge, because the explainability challenge is something where you very often have a difference between the explainability or the guaranteed explainability of the sort of forward-looking piece. There's no way that you can say that, you know, there's a definite if this then that link between the input that could be given to the AI system and the output that it will produce. But at any given point in time where you have run something through the AI, you can still then examine exactly what the resulting pattern of weights and biases, etc., that produced. So from the point of view of the relationship between Y and Z that you're sort of looking at, they could actually have done everything in a sort of in an entirely correct manner and have validated every single thing that they'd looked at, and then still been unlucky and come across the one thing that was finding the gap in the system. So there's a bit of an issue there between reasonable care and that explainability challenge. It's just something that occurred to me as we were sort of having that conversation. Sorry.
No, I think you're right. But isn't, in a way, it's not unique to AI, because it's not that different in kind, is it, from a traditional software project where you might have fantastically good, the opposite of negligent testing, and yet you get some weird corner case which doesn't come up to live operation, and it so happens that you have a number of things happening simultaneously. Whilst someone's dancing the jig on a Tuesday and it happens to be the full moon, then some really weird bug occurs, which no competent people probably would have found.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the difference there is that the AI system is always going to have a finite level of performance towards perfection, whereas in theory, admittedly human fallibility being a big problem, in theory it becomes possible to build a kind of perfect if this then that system.
In theory, it does. I mean, in the real world, of course, you're not even in control of all of the software, and you're not in control of the hardware which is running it. So, but you're right. I mean, and of course, just one more point on you can take the lid off and you can look at the weights and biases and so on, and you can see the connections. It's quite interesting, isn't it, that on that level, often even the most complex AI is fully explainable, but you can't then interpret what you're seeing.
Yeah.
So it's explainable in the way that, well, in a literal, or perhaps the way a physicist would see it, but not from an application. So it's a very interesting point. I'm sure we'll be hearing more about it, actually.